all
Good.
set, you are live.
All right, we call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Item 1, citizens' time. Hearing and seeing none. Item 2, Phase 2 sewer project.
Okay, so you all have a plan in front of you. We met yesterday with the, yes, with the developers at 93 Kendall, just for an update. They asked if they could come in and just give a little update to everybody. So, basically, you're gonna see on that plan, they're going to start with the smaller building first, the second building first, okay? The one over to the left of the plan. And they're going to run, put in a pump station and run the sewer line down and through the easement onto Middlesex Road. And then they're gonna hold off on the other building, because the other building will also need a pump station and infrastructure. They're not sure when they're gonna do that. It could be as late as the end of 2027. And they have finalized their private sewer agreement with 98 Kendall across the street. So they're gonna send that to us so that we can send it off to our attorney, cause she's been waiting on that to draft the agreement saying we would not be taking over any of the infrastructure in Kendall Road. And they also updated us that they are in talks with 84, cause you know 84 came before you for that, assisted living. So they are in talks with them as well. So nothing has been finalized, but that is all still moving parts. And so I just wanted to give you an update on that.
Does this go with that?
No, that's for the next conversation under phase 2.
And we have a peer review,
Yes.
53G with them that we're working on, and I know they have preliminary designs on everything, but we'll have more commentary on the pump station designs, et cetera, so.
So this, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was gonna say, we'll work with Paul once they get to construction on inspection things, but
This is all going,
to
No,
phase
sir.
2, yeah.
So this doesn't bode well for the garage?
No.
So would we tight tank or septic system?
Yeah, tie into the existing septic and probably pump it.
Yeah, looks good, at least they're getting started.
Yeah.
Maybe something will happen with that building and they can get this bore over across the street. We'll force them to get that moving,
Yeah.
they were just in front of planning, right, for this?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, that's it on that?
I have one other on phase 2, but that's it on that, yes. So we received a call, if you remember the parcel at 406 and 424 Middlesex, they came before us a while back, they were gonna put in a warehouse up there. And the property hasn't been sold yet, so the 2 individual owners still own the property, but there's like a developing company that was in charge of pursuing some permitting to put a warehouse up there. So, he reached out to me a couple of weeks ago to say, I think, my understanding is, I think kinda like his job is maybe to find customers to go into these parcels of land. So he said, he said, we have an inquiry for a potential build-to-suit tenant for those 2 parcels, and he wanted to know if we had 350,000 gallons a day for that, which is going to phase 2. So I reached out to Jack, and we don't have we would not have anywhere near that to give them on phase 2. Jack was saying even like the infrastructure is not even sized for that, but I don't know
Yeah.
if you wanna fill them in on that section of it?
Yeah, I'll go. So, yeah, the request was for like 350,000 gallons a day. They, through their bettered flow, they have about 57,000 gallons, for the 2 parcels. I looked at the tracking table, for all of phase 2 through the Drake at IMA, so just looking at capacity, using that higher flow that we used in fiscal 24 for what's actually flowing through the meter, and then all of the proposed uses, the needs areas, build out for that existing sewered area, et cetera. And we compare that to the 1 MGD of capacity. So you're about 908,000 when we factor all of that in, and that includes the build out estimate for Brock's on 98 Kendall, which is a number that I guess would change when you figure out what they need. I did allocate 15,000 for the assisted living that Kathy referenced before, so that leaves you just under, well, it leaves you about 90,000 of flow. And then if we retain a contingency of say 50,000, which is 5% of that capacity, You have 42,000, available to give. And that included a deletion of Locust Ave that we had, planned for. I think there's more line items in this table that could be removed if you chose to. And we also have, we're using the design numbers for phase 2 and Toll. But a lot of those properties have actually connected. So at some point, whenever you choose, we can do a parcel by parcel analysis to refine that, to subtract out all the parcels that have connected. So technically, the available capacity will increase, but we don't know how much until we do that parcel by parcel. But right now, we're just adding the bettered flow for phase 2 to the flow going through your meters for the IMA capacity. So this table is basically saying that if you keep 50,000 gallons a day of contingency, really you only have 42,000 for them, and they would be, short by 250,000.
It was 42 plus what they're allocated.
Yep, so you have 56 that they already have, so add the 40, there's about 100,000.
Where's the property again?
It's the ones,
Up behind Olive Garden?
behind Olive Garden, those two
And
big
behind
parcels.
Nathan
They,
Road. Oh, okay.
yeah, there were a few different plans for that in the past, for those areas.
That's a lot of flow.
It must be an industrial use.
Or
It's,
residential.
I think that parcel's also an MBTA communities parcel,
Oh, so
so,
put some,
so you do the residential.
So I had
Okay,
told the
wow.
gentleman I needed to bring it before you all, and I said, we're meeting again on the 10th, I can get back to you that night, and he said, this was last week or the week before, he said, unfortunately, I can't wait till then, he said, because these customers are looking at several sites. I said, okay, I can tell you what I know. I said, after talking to Jack, that the infrastructure wouldn't even handle that, we don't have that capacity. I said, however, maybe I can find out what we could offer you if those people wanted to downsize. So I wanted to just have a conversation with you guys tonight, because there's 4 parcels on here that have never paid for anything, and we kinda just have them on here because I think like in the past, they might have been brought up as discussions, and I wanted to ask you if you want us to leave them on here or put them into the available column. So one of them was, Locust Ave, which in this scenario, Jack does
I
not
did.
have them included in there. If he did, it would probably take up the rest of your available capacity.
Yeah, exactly.
So Locust Ave, there was no official plan, no one ever came before you. I think just when phase 2 was done, it was, thought of in case they ever wanted to put something back there. No one has paid for anything and no one has requested anything formally. So that was one of them. One of the other ones was, under the CWMP, you'll remember, there was a part of a phase 5 that was like the Althea Lake area and Upper Pawtucket Boulevard. So we never ended up getting that designed. Right now, as you know, we're already reserving flow in here for phase 1, East 3 and 5, just because it's been designed. We're hoping someday to build that out. I don't know if you wanna continue holding flow for that other section that hasn't even been designed. So that's another one to think
That's
about.
number 8,
That is,
7 and 8.
7 is Locust, but 10
it would be
is-
number 10. Yeah, so that's like another 11,000 gallons. We took Drake Water Treatment Plant out of there because they're no longer pursuing that.
Yeah, I'm gonna delete that off of the table, I just left it to make sure.
And then the first one at the number 2, that 56,000, what that is that Jack has put aside is, for anything that's old existing lines in Drake-it, or not Drake-it, on the Drake-it side, that, neighborhoods are sewer, but people just haven't connected yet. So he thought that was important to leave a group there in case you have houses here and there that wanna connect to those lines in some of those neighborhoods. Which I think that's probably a good idea to leave them, cause quite often we get requests for septics and stuff like that. So I guess we're just kinda looking for your input of what on here do you wanna leave on and what don't you? Because if you decide to take something off, it will increase that remaining capacity number, and then once we have that increased, how much of that are you willing to say if these people want it for their project? So just a couple areas of guidance we're looking for.
So 56,000, how many houses is that? That adds 1 ERU each?
And that should be based on your average flow, so I think that's quite a few.
Yeah.
56,000 divided by the 157 was the average flow back, it's 350.
Houses.
Yep. And now, yeah, and that was from, 2015 when we did the build out study. So a lot of those properties have had sewer available for quite a while.
So we got about 100,000 total gallons available.
41.
Well, if we did
The-
that 56.
Oh, if you took that.
Plus 43, plus.
Correct.
That was my question too, cause the property has 50-some thousand, right? So they already have the
What property?
better,
Oh, that
these
property,
subject properties,
yes.
they have 57,000
Yeah.
by right, I guess,
And not
you'd
to
say.
shoo their business away, but they can't do anything into Nashua, right?
You know, the last time we looked into Nashua for phase 2, they had no flow. I don't know
They
if,
don't have it either.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
know
know
the
if anything's
status of
changed.
their II.
but the other problem with that parcel, even if we had the capacity, as Jack was saying, what they need is almost double what the whole phase 2 infrastructure can actually hold.
Yeah, so we sized the phase 2 infrastructure for build out of all of the parcels. And then we made sure that the core infrastructure was big enough to handle Locust, and the Brox and that. So the wet wells and the pipe, they're all built like that. But the pumps and the generators, they're all sized for build out of the betterment project. So even though we had Locust factored in, the thought was that by the time you get anywhere near the build out and all of those things tie in, your pumps are gonna be 20-25 years old, and we can put in bigger pumps at that time. So we try to keep them more right sized, I guess. So yeah, the request for 350,000 gallons,
Yeah,
you look at the IMA capacity, but yeah, we have both pump stations are not really sized for that.
Downstream at Muscatatuck Trail Pump Station,
Yeah,
that wouldn't even be able to.
yeah, it's, you
Well,
got,
going through Reagan, that's gonna be a problem anyway,
Oh, yeah.
so
Yeah.
we're looking at increase, right?
but we said, they have 57,000 by right. If you do the remaining 40, and then if you looked at that line item 2, and then you said they could have another 100,000, that 100,000,
You got it, it just.
but yeah, the pump stations weren't sized for
So
that.
you're just contradicting yourself, cause we can't give them any flow, cause the station's not big enough.
Yeah, so this is like, from the IMA capacity, you have the 100,000.
Well, you give a little, you give Locust, cause you size that in, no?
The system, except for the pumps and whatnot, are sized for that, so at some point, you would have to upsize the pumps.
Got it, okay.
So let me ask you this question. In a perfect world, right, we were gonna put sewer on Pawtucket Boulevard, right? With a, gravity line, obviously, right? And could we put a force main and drop it into a gravity and go through Lowell?
How much do we have in Lowell?
So we only have 80,000 gallons a day in Lowell, and we're probably currently at, I'd have to check, but I'm gonna say maybe 30% using of that right now, so,
But allocated 30 as well?
what's that?
In other words, promised or committed,
No,
that's at 30%.
that's what's actually being
But
used.
if we had flow, we could do that.
That's pretty far away, I think that's a long run to go down there, directly to
Well, But
Lowell.
if we dumped it into a gravity, it was gravity from the bridge to wherever, right?
You couldn't get gravity there, could you?
I don't know.
You'd have to, from these properties, you'd have to pump it over the bridge, and then you could,
Well, you're talking from Parker.
From Parker Lane, yeah. So if there was a manhole on the other side going down.
yeah, it would be, yeah.
So
In
what do
theory, you could do it by gravity, but I'm not sure with some of the culverts and other things, but that is a really long run.
Yeah, so what do you do with the line that we just put in, going up Curtis Hill?
I think you're saying like that would take,
So, you're not saying redirect it, or are you?
I'm saying put it,
if you split it there,
what do we got, 2 pumps there, right? One go to Drake and one go that way.
yeah.
Would that free us up? I don't know, I'm just, maybe
Yeah.
that's something if it's doable, I mean, if they're looking for 350, maybe that's some infrastructure that they're willing to put in. I mean, I would think we could probably increase that flow through Lowell.
No.
I
No,
I don't
think
know,
so.
because Lowell's, Lowell has a kind of a limit, don't they, because of the CSOs and all that?
Well, I just, on the radio today, they're moving forward with their,
With their INI.
$100 million bucks.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it costs,
Yeah.
$100 million. That's an INI project.
So if you, the 100,000 gallons that we're talking about, that's about 400 gallons a minute. So it'd be 400 GPM more you'd want out of those pumps. I think those pumps are like,
I
like
don't know.
1,000?
They weren't
We're just
set,
kicking
so-
around, Paul.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
nobody's committed to this, we haven't gone to town meeting.
You can-
We're just kicking it around, some ideas, the best things have come out of just kicking around ideas, right?
That's what happened at Vestmont.
That's
Yeah.
right, so just trying to
And-
find ways, cause that's a lot of money, a lot of tax revenue up there. So if we can get it done
And then,
somehow,
and we were talking that initially, the Nashua thought that you had too, of like, could it go right to Nashua? We don't know where that stands.
Nashua's got an INI problem.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think they're in a
It's worse-
similar
it's
boat
worse
as
than us,
Lowell,
yeah.
so that's there, but yeah, if you could, I didn't get into checking the force mains on, you know, if they're big enough to handle that much flow. It should be,
well, this one seems like it's gone, seems like they had to make a decision.
It
But
does, I mean, I
others-
did offer that to him, I said, but you know, let me go to the meeting and let's see if maybe we can offer you something, if you downsize, you know, I didn't know it was gonna come out of tonight. And he said it wouldn't hurt, but for all I know, they could have moved on, I don't know. I'll certainly email him and let him know whatever comes out of tonight's discussion. His clients might have found something else at this point.
But even getting to that, well, for a project like that, I can imagine they'd spend some money on infrastructure if they had to, that's a.
yeah.
They're-
Yeah,
they're
he did
probably-
ask that question.
They're probably looking at apartments like they did up in Nashua at Exit One, those, I don't know how many apartments are in, or condos are in those units. There's gotta be 100 in each or more, so.
Yeah, when you look at the per unit cost, it adds up quickly for
Well, they're
what they
also
can do.
working-
So we're gonna go from pretty much the
600,000
farthest
gallons of
point,
water.
Yeah.
right, it's gonna go from the farthest point of phase 2, right?
Yeah,
So,
Mm.
yep.
Would've
Yeah.
been so much easier if they were on the other side of the bridge, you know?
And on a hill.
Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, so they had 57, and if you account for some of that, or if you account for the build out, yeah, plus the remaining 40, you've got another 100, so.
You could get it to 100 with, infrastructure improvements, with pumps. Pipe size, okay?
But they have 57 on that property as it is, so
Better,
you're
yeah.
saying they could go to 157, right?
Well, that's what I thought you said, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, 157,000, I think, for their property, if you gave them the build-out flow. But then, yeah, the infrastructure upgrades, which are new pumps at both stations, and there could be other, and, well, Muscoppic, right? Muscoppic
so
and,
would Parker Lane, if they, just sake of argument, right, they dump 300,000 gallons a day in that, 350, whatever it is, right? Would that be able to, the 2 pump stations be able to?
well, they're basically designed for roughly that now, but that's all of phase 2.
Right.
So, like, what this property's asking for is like that plus an additional 200 and some thousand. So it's like double, you know, so that's like, it's,
You wouldn't have anything for anybody else.
yeah, but,
Everybody else that'd be done.
yeah, so like that's just like too much, but yeah, if you went to the 150, but I do think, you know, that the cost is gonna add up for doing 3 pump stations, you're upsizing, maybe there's something else, but you'd be into pumps and generators, and you have to look at the wet well,
Okay.
but it tested the, it tested the capacity though.
The chart would be helpful, I think, just adding another column that says not committed.
Okay.
Keeping all these and putting those in the uncommitted, so we know at any given time what's committed and
Okay.
what's.
Yeah,
Would
this is a wooden cover
would-
chart, but
would
yeah.
that
if
Yeah,
you-
yep,
Yeah, I would.
Yeah, no, that's okay, I just want, I can't help you there, I'm sorry.
Just in the future, then we can know
Yeah,
yep. And,
available or uncommitted,
and,
whatever.
are there any of those ones that we talked about tonight that at this point you're like, they haven't paid anything, they haven't come before us, put them in the available chart? I mean, how do you feel about any of
Well,
those?
I would say yes,
Like Locust.
only because if we have the situation, right, if we can use it for somebody who wants to build,
Right.
then I think we give it up.
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
all of
You
them.
know?
in
So,
that.
so Locust, he already has in that column, so
Right,
that's
do you agree
okay.
with that?
Yep.
And then the other ones, so so you'd be okay with the Althea Upper Pawtucket, cause that hasn't even been designed,
Right,
right? So that one's okay.
well, I mean, again, it gets to my point about the other pump station, can we redirect some of that going down? What do we, goes too low now, any idea?
How
Well, I'm
much?
sure you know how much.
Yep, so we're allowed 80,000 gallons a day, we're using about 30-something%. I could look at their last.
It's peanuts, right?
yeah, yeah.
Now, I'm just trying to think if there's anybody else on that. So we have one we're gonna talk about tonight, but that's just an ADU in a house. There's nobody else big coming through.
What's the,
The school's on it, that's about
The
it.
school's on it, Vesper Stonehenge and the inn is on
Yeah.
it.
what about the
But-
horse farm, what was that,
Oh,
Max?
yeah, thank you. I knew there was something hanging on my
If they
brain.
did
They're
something,
still
what was
in the
their
air,
max?
they-
So
Is
they
it
were looking at
42?
32 units, 16 duplexes. But they're in the permitting stage. I don't know where they're at. I mean, it's been recent that they've come back with that
5,000,
project, so.
Okay.
less than
Yeah.
5,000.
So you're still about a third,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, but I'll add the not committed column. Or committed. I'm not sure which way I do that, but I'll do it like, and I guess I'll get you a draft because I just wanna make sure we have the right ones in, or we take out the correct ones, I should say. But yeah, I can expand the table.
Well, like the build out with, I mean, technically that's not committed, right?
Correct.
And the light, no, that actually, I was gonna say, at one point I was trying to do it by the color, yeah, no. But yeah, I'll get the column in and we can.
So I don't know if you wanna keep a portion of the build out for any of those homes in those areas that may have septic failures, you know, if you wanna keep 10% or 20% or, because otherwise then everything on that side of town, other than the stuff that hasn't been built yet, would be gone, the
Yeah.
capacity,
Would you
right?
say it was 160 basically a day, gallons
Like
per house in
165?
the area?
Oh, yeah, about, yeah.
So yeah, if you kept 10%, 5,600 would be 40 houses or something, yeah, that's probably pretty good.
We didn't think we
Yeah,
were gonna have this
36.
problem.
No,
It's-
no,
Yeah.
I wasn't
Not over
expecting a
there,
call
yeah.
for 350,000 gallons a day.
No kidding.
I've never heard that large amount for that.
Well, once that MBTA piece happened, adding apartments to that, with industrial, you'd never get 350,000 a day.
Yeah, no.
Right.
Unless they were doing something with just pouring water down the drain.
Bottling plant.
That,
Yeah, well, yeah.
I was
Not a
wondering
slide.
if that was what it was.
It's gotta be
actually.
something that, a medical company,
No, I bet they're doing just those giant, because how many, with the MBTA Act, how many apartments can they get out there? As many as they can
Probably.
smash in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right along the highway, probably pretty good mixed use.
Yep.
Be a traffic problem.
Yeah,
oh yeah, it's already a traffic problem, isn't it?
Well, if they went on the other side, right, the parking lot,
Oh, at the mall?
yeah, then they could go into Nashville.
so I'll update the table, we talked about the parcel by parcel analysis. I don't think it's worth doing that yet, cause it's a big undertaking, but, if you ever want us to do that, we can do it, but that would be looking at, also at like the build out. We're just re-looking at all the parcels that are tied in the existing area, upstream of Drake it, but then also looking at the bettered flows and who's actually connected and subtracting them out. And same with toll, cause we're carrying the full number for the toll development as well as the 20 affordable units over there, but you know,
Some
some
are
of the,
connected.
some of that flow is in here, but we don't know exactly what it is.
I mean, we can figure it out, it's just gonna
Yeah.
take time, cause you got people that connect at different times of the year, so even if we look at fiscal 24's, you know,
But it's committed, right? It's never gonna go to the uncommitted one.
no, but
So we don't care.
but it's in
No,
two
but-
places.
Yeah, it's double counted for
It's up in
in
the
some
top,
of it.
it's in number one, and it's also down below, so
Oh,
that
I
will
see.
give you a
It's-
little bit
Oh,
more
I see.
capacity. And then we were talking about, and Jack feels this should remain, was the Pondview condos. He thought, I mean, it's not a
It's
lot
small-
anyway,
small
it's,
numbers, yeah.
it's, yeah, but he
Yeah.
thought that that was important because that was an area that environmentally,
Yeah, I saw that as the environmental need was made that one worth keeping, and like you said, it's not a big
no,
amount
that was
for-
only like 3,000 and something.
Yeah, at some point, yeah.
Yeah, they'll be back, right?
Okay, good.
So how do we end this, what should I be telling him?
The,
The 350 number
is way too much.
Yeah.
We're willing to work, and trying to figure out a way to get whatever.
Okay, if so, maybe touch base with them first and say, are these people still interested? If so, we'll work and try to get you a number, but it's gonna take a little time, or?
Yeah, I think we can do, whatever we can do to make it work, I think we'll do.
It sounds like the number's between 100 and 250 max, and that's gonna, the 100 is probably not a big stretch, but the 250 is infrastructure improvements.
And when you say
Sorry.
the 100, you mean the 100 over and above what they are already allotted for?
No, 51 and the 41, adding those two together
Okay.
is,
Did you talk to Colin about this at all?
I have not, I did talk to Jake, I filled him
Yeah.
in on it, but, have you, are you asking because of what's on that, what you think is gonna go on the site, or you want to know what's going on the site?
No, I
Oh.
just, whether they'd be on board, if they're looking for us to try to figure something out, or they don't, it's not something that's in their plan.
did they go through the town plan, or?
No, so I
They
don't
just-
even,
they just
I
called
don't,
you
I
directly?
personally don't even know what it
They
is
cold called
yet.
you.
They're probably just doing it just as, before they even start, if it's a hard no on sewer, then they're not even gonna bother.
Right,
But it does look like it can be, if you factor in the build out, almost you can bring it up to 150 pretty easily. Getting up to over 200 is, unless you divert the low.
Elm Street Engineering has a little more work to do there.
Yeah. But it's, 150 seems like if you,
Why are we paying these guys? They could be doing this. Just go gravity air, 2 manholes.
I like it.
Yeah, the bill's only.
Here's a napkin.
And put the valve in the bridge, so.
That's right.
That was Jeff's idea.
I mean, if it's
Remember that?
apartments and you look at the price they're gonna make in a year,
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
You
no,
know,
that may not
it-
shock them to do something.
you know, oh, you gotta upgrade a bunch of stuff, okay.
Yeah, might be a no-brainer for the amount of money that's going.
I don't know how much water they need.
600,000 gallons.
The email he sent me was 1.2 million, but you were at 600,000, huh?
Yeah, Dan told me they're looking for 600,000 gallons of water.
And do they have that to give, or they're looking to?
They don't
do
have it.
Oh, then that may,
That's probably.
that might be that.
So the
They
toilet
don't
won't
have
flush
600,000
anyways.
gallons.
Right,
So-
exactly.
Composting toilets or whatever.
Maybe they're gonna put a water tower on site or something.
Okay.
Alright, so I'll touch base with them, I'll say, is the person still interested? You know, we could potentially give you an extra 100,000 that could make it through the system, okay, without upgrades, or?
I think that may require some upgrades, so I would just leave it loose on the downstream
Okay.
upgrades. But from a capacity perspective,
We could potentially do an extra 100 over and above what they're
yeah,
bettered.
yes, yeah.
Okay, extra 100.
Then tell them it's a privilege fee, although if they do infrastructure work, then if need be, then we'll work with them.
Okay, so I'll ask, we would need to know some definite plans of what you're looking to do up there, and we'll see what we can do, and, okay.
It's a
Anything else?
challenging site.
What's
Yeah.
I
that?
think that's why the other people backed out.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
A lot of ledge.
yeah.
Oh, that's a mountain, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Anything else on phase 2?
No.
That's why for years it was for sale for 500 grand. Couldn't move it. Because you're never gonna get a septic system then.
All right, old business, phase 1 west, 50 Westford Road, 95, 97 Westford Mobile.
they're doing another whole, like tractor trailer, diesel, on the lot where the landscaper was.
I'm not aware of that.
I'm not
I thought that's what Mobile was trying to do, expand that site.
I don't know.
Discussion on sewer garage?
Nothing new.
Nothing, that's it? 9I?
Okay, so, I sent out all the letters on Monday for the sump pump re-inspections, and to all the people who had, sump pumps originally connected, that Paul had them removed. And then you had asked me to put together some language for the regs, so I did that. So basically, there's a section in our regs that, talks about the authorized sewer personnel. Well, there's a whole paragraph on you can't make connections from roof downspouts, foundation drains, sump pumps, and all that. So in the next area below, it currently says the authorized sewer personnel or his representative reserves the right to inspect any property to confirm that there are none of the aforementioned unauthorized connections to the public sewer. And then I was thinking we could add in any properties discovered to have connections as listed in section 5.10 will be re-inspected on an annual basis. If the property owner denies access for a re-inspection, a surcharge may be added to the sewer usage bill to cover the additional flow due to illicit connections. So if you're okay with that couple of sentences, you can take a vote on this tonight, cause this is our regular rates, and I can update that. It's up to you. You can look at it if you want. Anything in red is what we'd be adding in per the conversation last week.
So, and, should we say, and a fine, until we get inspection?
Whatever you want. I know Fred had mentioned about the surcharge, because the point of that is directly connected to if we can't inspect it, then we're gonna assume there's clean water going in, and that's adding, it's increasing the usage bills, you know,
So surcharge and or fine?
whatever you guys wanna.
Maybe add it? Is that what you wanted?
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
I don't think that can hurt, leaves us some options.
Okay, so after surcharge and or fine,
Mhm.
okay. Yep, I can do that, and if you wanna, and I did send that to Fred and he was fine with it as well, so I don't know if you wanna take a vote, and then I'll update
Yeah,
that in the regular
we can
rates.
Just, ask for that.
Make a motion to amend 5.10 of the sewer use regulations to include as printed in this document from 4/3/25.
Second that. Any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor? Aye, opposed, unanimous.
Okay, so I wanted to update you a little bit on Charles George flow. So first of all, Paul has been giving me, the Cummings pump station and the Progress Ave pump station meter readings. So I started a chart, and if you subtract Progress from Cummings, that is solely Charles George flow, okay? Because,
Wait a minute, just hang on one second.
oh, sure.
So we're all set with I, we
well,
just,
it's still under II, yeah.
but we just did the regs?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I just, cause the regs is listed, I didn't know it was listed. I didn't get that far.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
So this is still, we're still on I, okay, perfect.
Yep, so, Charles George, I'm sorry, Jack,
Yeah.
Jake, did everybody get one of these? Okay.
He doesn't share.
So, when we bill quarterly for commercial, Charles George has their own meter and they submit their readings to us. But because of the high rain events and so forth, Paul and I were talking and he started submitting to me, these, so that we can compare them, basically. So I've set up a chart and basically between, so as you know, in the past, when we've looked at flow, over the course of a year, they average about 27,000 gallons a day. And under that agreement that we found last August, they have the ability to use 57,600 or something like that. So what I did is I have readings from December 2nd through April 1st, so it's a 4-month period of time. All the flow in the right-hand corner is the actual flow day by day. and then I divided it by the number of days, and their average in those 4 months is almost 46,000 gallons a day. So they're sending through a lot right now. It's not exceeding what they're allowed to send through, but it's almost doubling what we had been seeing in the past. So I just kinda wanted you guys to see that, you know, on certain days, it's over 80,000. I got an email from Dave Buckley at DEP when he sent me the, meter readings this week, and he said that DEP and EPA are very close to, making some final decisions regarding how they're gonna treat the PFAS that we talked about last September when we met with them, and they will be in touch with us very, very soon. So it sounds like it's kinda right around the corner that we're gonna know either they need the full 57 or they're going to completely come out of the system. We don't know at this point in time, but just so you're kinda seeing, the flow numbers, there's only one day out of these 121 days that they are actually below 27,000 gallons a day, so.
Yeah, so getting to these numbers, I get these off of my mission, cause this goes off of pump run times. So these are just like rough and dirty numbers, 'cause we don't, I'll calculate the head loss in the pump. But, with the I&I coming up, tomorrow we'll be placing flow meters in the manholes. I am going to put one on our property at the pump station where Charles George discharges into us. They're gonna put a flow meter inside the manhole, so we'll have accurate numbers.
Yeah. So this is kinda estimated, but, it's still higher than we were anticipating. Oh, and the second piece to this puzzle is, I was talking to Jeff the other day, and we were talking about capacity because he had a client that's gonna come up later in this thing, that was looking to tie in. So he and I were talking about the capacity, and I was updating him on the fact that we just discovered this Charles George thing over the summer, we weren't anticipating all that. And what Jeff was saying was, he remembers back in the day when they were talking about building that site to treat for Charles George, that nothing was in writing, but that it was verbalized that the commission had just purchased the 350,000 gallons a day like the year before from Chelmsford, and then this came about. So there was discussions to say, okay, none of this was anticipated when we bought the 350,000 gallons a day, so we're gonna need to, buy more flow from Chelmsford, or should that be included in our Chelmsford limitations, or something like that. Jeff he recalled it, but he said it was, more of a verbal conversation. So I went through the files since I talked to him, and I went through 4 years of meeting minutes, and I found 2 sets of meeting minutes. And basically, one of them says, one of them from June of '96, the commission was discussing the project and said that was not considered when they bought the 350 from Chelmsford. Now they have to look at purchasing more flow, and then 2 months later, in meeting minutes, there was discussion on, because EPA and Army Corps and DEP were kinda all involved in that project, and there was gonna be money coming in from them to like buy land and buy easements and do the infrastructure and all that. So there was a mention at that point in time of some of that money could be used to get more flow from Chelmsford. But nothing ever happened, it's not in the IMA, there's nothing in meeting minutes about anybody actually reaching out to Chelmsford. So that part's a mystery. When we do meet with them, I'll just ask, because Dave was around back then, does he recall anything? But the bottom line is, either the commission asked Chelmsford for more flow to cover Charles George and were denied back then, cause maybe their flow was limited even back then, I don't know. Or they decided at the time to just let it be and be part of the 350. I'm not finding any evidence of anything otherwise, but I think it's worth an ask. That, I guess Jeff's point of view from back then was, because this was an EPA project and DEP's involved, could we have gotten more flow and not have this be counted kind of? The problem we're now at 30 years later is, even if Chelmsford said yes, and Lowell said yes, you can, and DEP gave them more flow, and you can have this extra flow, you can have your 350 and Charles George, the infrastructure now has to be upgraded for over $4 million. So regardless, I just wanted you to know that piece of information, that it was potentially discussed back then, but I think in the nowadays problems of having that, and then I pulled the cost study that they did on that, just to refresh my memory, because it's been several years. and it was there's a sewer pipe on Tyngsborough Road in Chelmsford that carries the flow from Tyngsborough over to the Southwell pump station. That would have to be upsized, as well as pumps in the pump station. It was gonna be 4 point something million 6 years ago. I'm sure that's probably doubled by now, or
It's gone up.
it's gone up a lot. So I think even if we were able to somehow negotiate with them and get more flow, we're still in the same boat of, you can't go, cause I was looking to see if there was like a caveat in that cost study to say, you could put another 50,000 through before you outsize these pipes. But from what I read, it seemed as though your 350 was your limit. And I know you thought that they did this survey conservatively,
Yeah, I felt like there might be a number, but
wiggle
it
room,
wasn't a lot.
but it didn't
Yeah.
seem like there was a lot, like they went back and looked at it, so.
They did the study, right?
Weston and
Yeah,
Sampson
right,
did the
that's
study on their behalf, that we paid half for, so, and then Woodard and Curran had peer review comments back saying, we think you were a little conservative, and then they responded back, and with the pipe itself, I think there just is not a lot of wiggle room above the 350, even if we were to get more capacity. So, it probably doesn't matter, I just want you to have the full picture.
What size is that pipe?
No idea, I don't recall.
It's probably in the cost study.
But
Because it's not
but
ours, it's
there was
their-
gravity sewer, and I can't remember, there was force main too,
Yeah.
I don't remember, there might be 2 different pipes that need to be upsized, and the upgrades at the pump station.
Because there were other things going into Southwell, so they were looking at, they also had, some projects, I think, in the works that would have been dumping into Southwell, not the pipe alone, I think
Can
was
we,
just
can we
outflow,
open the
but.
valve on the bridge?
I requested
We
that
forgot to
valve.
put it in.
I didn't get it placed, put in place. I said I got a four-wheeler instead of a broom.
So anyway, that's that.
All right,
Or, just on the II, yeah, Paul said the meters were going in,
Tomorrow.
tomorrow. I think, we're putting in, what, a handful? 5 meters, and they're gonna go in for like 4 weeks or something, and we have some additional investigation that'll happen at some point, but there's rain coming this weekend, so
Yes.
it's good that we're catching some of that, and we'll see what it.
So where they're going, they're gonna be capturing pretty much all the flow for that whole side.
Yep.
So,
It's good.
So this here, they basically had done a test on the water quality coming out of that hill, basically, that mountain, and see whether it can be put into the brook, or if it still has to be.
They would have to treat it either
released.
way, they said, right? I think at that meeting, that even if they weren't gonna put it back in our system, they would be like creating a treatment, I don't wanna say
Something.
plant, but
Something
Yeah.
like that,
Well,
probably
I-
a small treatment plant,
I
don't
think
know.
they're building a treatment plant no matter what, right?
They have to, right?
And then it's either gonna discharge to the stream or discharge to
Whatever
the
the
sewer.
quality is coming
But I think
out.
they have to remove PFAS, right? They have to remove all the PFAS,
Yeah.
or,
Good percentage of it,
Yeah.
because right now they're just pushing it downstream.
yeah.
It's, where's it going?
No,
Right to
Merrimack.
Lowell.
it's a little, yeah.
Yeah. So, when that time comes, I know you were at that meeting with us, Darryl, I'll certainly, I don't know if we're meeting in person or they're just gonna send a report, I don't know. But, we'll update you guys as soon as we know more. But it sounds like it's right around the corner that,
Okay.
sounds like they're close to whatever they're deciding, so.
Yeah.
all right. Future sewer phases?
I don't have anything on that.
You should have gotten an email from us today, Kathy, with the electronic deliverable of just the plan sets and the specs and a cost estimate
Okay.
for that sewer design.
If it came after
It came
5,
late.
then I didn't see it yet, but,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so yeah, it came very late. So you should have that, and I think some of the betterment numbers, you know, they're high. So without grant funding, town contribution, other things like that, it was in the $60K to $100 plus per ERU. So
Oh, not a
obviously you need to defray those. So
All right.
Oh, and on that note, so I updated you at the last meeting that we did resubmit for failings, and the notice came out from Wood and Curran that Marky's office is now opening that same thing as well, cause usually they want you to apply in both places, so I think it's opening April 14th. So I will reapply through them as well for that same project, but we'll see what happens.
you said Marky's office. Did you mean Trahan's?
I meant your hands, I'm sorry, yes, yes.
So the
Representative
Senate
Trahan's
ones
office.
went in,
The Senate
and then
ones
the
went in
House
a
are
few weeks
later.
ago, and the House, yes, I'm sorry,
Any moment.
another one.
All right, Flint's Corner?
So you had asked Jack back in October to reach out to them, because as you know, we're reserving, that's one of the people we're reserving for under the MOA, and to get that MOA updated, and you gave them 6 months, which is this week. So Jack sent out a letter yesterday, certified mail to them, and, and
Yeah.
emailed them to them as well, to both the engineer and the
attorney.
attorney, asking them to please provide that updated MOA, we're assuming they've updated it, to update, provide that updated MOA before the next meeting for you on the 24th, so that you guys can review it at that point in time. And so if it didn't get done, I'm sure we'll hear from them.
No response?
No response. We dropped it in the mail yesterday, but I also emailed the letter to them. But yeah, I was thinking I might get a quick email response back, but I don't have anything yet.
And he did put in the caveat that, because that was your intention, that if we don't hear back from you, we can't guarantee that it's gonna get reserved, you know.
How much are we holding for them?
27,000,
It's
I think.
27 is the Title V number, but yeah, it's like 13,000 average, 13.5.
All right, discussion 241 Pawtucket Boulevard, request to connect.
Okay, so at the last meeting, we talked about this and you agreed that, this parcel could connect. They would need to run a short line, in the shoulder of the road, get Mass DOT permitting, leave stubs for their two neighbors, tie into that manhole. But the thing that we didn't speak about, and I emailed you, but Daryl's doesn't know, but, we just never clarified before I get back to the gentleman, are we waiving connection fees because he's putting in infrastructure that other houses could connect to? And secondly, is he owning the line until they connect, like Mobile is? I mean, so I wanna get everything in meeting minutes so that there's no problems in the future.
I would say yes and yes,
Okay,
my take.
so, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
So waive fees, and unless you have something else.
Paul and I talked about this with that line being probably an E1 with other lines connecting into. We were thinking and proposing to possibly just maybe have that homeowner put in a common manhole. That way they're not paying for the line for other people to tie in. They put in their own line in the common manhole. If other houses wanna tie into that common, and then go gravity from that to the existing manhole on Pawtucket, and then that way we would take over just the gravity component instead of taking over an E1 or a low pressure system.
That makes sense. Oh, but did you talk about them owning that stuff?
So in that case, they wouldn't, because it would be just that, correct?
Yeah, if other homeowners are tying in and there's issues, and then it could come back to us that,
So they would own they would own the force main to the manhole.
So, I'm assuming put the manhole here and just gravity, how far is that?
It's about 20, not even 20 feet. Depending on where you put that manhole. It's all on the shoulder.
Oh, so they would own that?
Yes.
they would
their
own just
force main.
their own force main, and then each house within that line would put their own.
But they would pay to put in the manhole?
Yeah, and then I would think,
Waive the fee.
waive the fee or something if they put in that infrastructure.
So the manhole and the gravity sewer,
Yep.
that's gonna be in the DOT right away?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
And then each house would tie into that, and then that way there's no back and forth between homeowners on, if something happened to that line.
So then the other houses would have to run their own line to
Yep.
that common
Yeah,
manhole?
yeah, and
And
they
everybody
own their
owns
own
their
line.
own, okay.
So if there's ever an issue, we just have to open up that manhole
And figure out
to
whose
figure out
line
who's
it
got
is.
the issue.
Does that sound good to you guys? Is it pretty good on?
Yeah.
They
Okay.
do a better job than Elm Street engineering. You're out of the job.
What? Wait,
I didn't have time to design it.
Brian, that's consistent. They're extending the sewer up to your
Yeah.
extension.
We're almost there. We got one manhole, we're 20 feet, 2
just
miles
cut
to
it
go.
Still got 15 miles to
Maybe
go.
yours cheaper already. We're almost there.
Can't forget the plug for the generator though.
All right, new business, topic chair did not reasonably anticipate would be discussed.
I just, for Zero Pawtucket, I haven't heard from Brian Malisi. There was some email challenges, but he now has my email address, but I still haven't heard from him, but
What is-
that's just enough.
What is zero?
That's
The
the
horse
Stonehenge
corral?
Meadow.
Say it the horse corral.
Horse
Meadow.
corral, okay.
Yeah, that one. But he was gonna I'm expecting him to request some of our hydraulic calculations for the pump station sizing. And then the ADU discussion, is that later?
That's later,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
All right. 8187 Middlesex Road.
Okay, so this is, Paul took some pictures and, this is a request to connect, it's a 4-unit home, is that correct, Paul?
Yep.
4-unit home, heading to Chelmsford. I told the woman that I would bring it to you all tonight. I did explain to her about the capacity limitations. And so I wanted to see if you all just want me to tell her the same, that if things change, and then I told her I would let her know after the meeting tonight. However, I did see Jeff today, he came in, and he was actually going to talk to Board of Health because they're going to put in a septic. He's designing a septic for that site. So, change
So
plan.
Oh, you-
Where was it, where was this again, what street?
right across from Ryan's Automotive?
8187
Oh.
Middlesex.
Yeah,
That's existing,
yes.
and that's the it's not phase one, it's the existing one.
Correct. Yep.
That's back in the day line, right?
I mean, if you want, I'll still send her an email saying things may change and she can make that decision on her own. I don't know if they're looking to sell it,
They
and
don't have
that's why they
stubs?
looking to.
Yeah,
Weren't they better?
They have the stuff.
No,
They're
that's
not
the-
better, that's from
the existing line.
The project, way,
Oh.
2004 project.
Like, this is driving me nuts, like turning people away, you know?
You wanna file this?
Yeah, I'll start.
We really gotta look at this capacity.
Maybe they'll have some change with the new EPA structure and stuff like that, you never know. Listening to the new guy that's running the show there seems to, whether it's sewer related, but the regulation stuff they may do something with walls. But if Lori Trahan, really got into their ear, cause that needs to get fixed. There's no waiting, I mean, it's like big log jam, so. But you never know.
All right, moving on, sewer administrators report.
Okay, so, meeting minutes to approve from March 27th, regular and executive session.
Make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes for March 27th, 2025, as printed.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing seen, none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Motion to approve the executive session meeting minutes, March 27th, as printed, not to release.
Second, just a quick question, Kat.
Yes.
I saw, I don't know if it was in these minutes or, cause we talked about the Vespa thing in open session last week, right?
The Zero Pawtucket we did, yes, we were able to talk about the infrastructure in open session, yes.
So, but I mean, obviously, there's other things in this minutes that can't be released.
Correct.
Even though that is.
It was just because we were only talking about infrastructure and
Okay.
not anything else, yeah.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing seen, none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then some
Unanimous.
meeting, some bills for you to review.
Trinity moving to Drayton, to Tyngsborough, what's going on here? They moving here? They should put an office here.
I would say they're moving to Weston, not Tyngsborough. At least all little. Woodard in turn has the large one here. You've surpassed the tree.
I have a couple other things, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so we spoke at a couple meetings ago about the fact that all of our general services contracts were going to be, expiring June 30th. So procurement put them out to bid, Colin does all the procurement, and those went out to bid. So I wanted to just give you the bid results, except for engineering that's coming in next week or the week
Monday
after.
one.
Okay, so,
28?
let's see, so the generator,
That Thursday. Or no,
the
that was-
generator
you're right.
bid was won by
Right,
Siobhan,
28.
who we currently are using, and as well as the pump purchases.
That stays the same.
That stays the same, and Paul's very happy with them,
Mm.
very happy with them. LeBlanc, one was the sole bidder, I believe,
Yeah.
for the,
Emergency road.
emergency road repairs, or little sewer line repairs.
And they were doing it this year?
They were doing it.
Right.
So that didn't change. The pump purchase, if we wanna buy pumps, that's also through Siobhan, same as last year.
Yeah, that stays.
They won that as well. The only two changes that we have is, Action King. There was someone who bid against them, Bates and Septic Systems, and they actually won. And they have a, Vector truck, right? Is that what it was?
Bates,
Or,
overhead vector.
yeah.
So-
So they'll be the new, as of
Get rid
July
confined
first.
space, so the overhead vectors.
Yep. And the other one was, for the, it was between Weston and Sampson and Daigle Electric, and Daigle Electric came in under priced. So as of July first, that will be the vendor, that we'll be using for that. And they've also done some,
Using them
for everything that Weston and
Emergency-
Sampson does
yeah,
now, like
emergency
emergency calls, call-outs, planned schedule, maintenance, pump
Repairs,
stations.
emergency calls, anything to do with the pump station.
And you know them, Paul?
Nope, I don't.
The town uses them for other things, right? Oh,
They're new to town.
oh, they're new to town, okay.
what's your name?
Daigle Electric, and they said that they do, was it, Deer Island?
They've done work at, different pump stations, they've done work at Deer Island.
Yeah.
They are bonded with, or pre-qualified with the state for a bunch of electrical stuff, pump stations, and a few other things, I can't list it off the top of my head, but.
Do they do other towns?
He said they did, but
Yes,
I,
they
Obviously,
check
you
references.
check references, right?
Yep.
that's part of the procurement, they do that, yeah.
Obviously, they came back good.
Yeah, and,
We'll have a meet and greet before, coming up real soon.
Yeah, since they are new, we'd like to have them come in, show them around, and stuff like that. Same with the, pump guy.
No, where are they located?
they are out of Wilmington,
Okay, so not too far. So they're emergency.
Yeah, oh yeah, so they gotta respond within an hour, so.
yeah, that was in the contract, I think,
Yep.
right? The bid
And
docs.
this-
They do, I mean, they're an electrical contractor, but we've interfaced with them on a variety of projects in Eastern Mass. But more from the electrical contractor perspective,
Not
not
the pump side,
No.
not pulling pumps, doing check
I've
valves.
only interfaced with them as an electrical
Yeah,
contractor.
so that's,
Jake,
I have my
do we
concerns.
need a vote or anything, or is when the actual, I know Colin signs like the procurement
Yep.
documents, so do we need a vote or anything? I can't remember if we've
I-
done that in the past, or it's just an informational thing I'm telling you maybe?
For those,
Yeah,
do we have to sign, who's signing the contract?
Colin
Colin.
signs those,
Colin,
cause
he's the
procurement
procurement
officer,
officer.
yeah, so probably not.
I think we're good.
Okay. And then one last thing I had was, two more things. Okay, so 180 Lakeview Ave, which is where the old Council on Aging was, so that building will be demolished eventually, soon. So they just got their sewer usage bill. There's been nobody in that building, it's been vacant for a long time. So anyway, they were asking like, what do we need to do to stop paying sewer bills?
Cut cap.
Right, cut and cap, which I told them a while back. So, what I asked Jackie, cause that's coming up soon, I said, if you can get me a letter stating that you're in the process now of getting ready to do getting soon with the demo and they'll do the cut and cap, that I would bring it to you to see if we can at least abate the most recent sewer bill up to this date. So as of the date of the letter, which is April 8th, from April 8th to June 30th, if we can abate the rest of the sewer usage bill. In reality, nobody's been in the building for a very, very, very long time, years and years and years, and they've been paying the sewer bills very long, but,
So it's just the base bill?
So is
yeah.
that gonna help out with this?
No, it'll
No.
57 gallons.
They'll tell you there's a sump pump in the basement.
Take that out, yeah, right, yeah.
So I think it's a total of, we'd be abating $126.84. I typed up the abatements, if you're okay with it, if you wanna take a vote, and then if you wanna sign them, Brian.
This is the town asking for money back? back?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
it's,
gonna take some thought.
they've been paying it right along. No one's been in there.
Approve an abatement of, what is it,
$126.84.
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Any
and
further discussion?
You
Hearing
can
seen none, all in
sign
favor?
those. Thank you.
Opposed, unanimous. You got one other thing?
I do have one other thing. Okay, so, at the last meeting, you asked me to advertise for the betterment regs updates, as well as you were gonna have Jack draft an ADU update. There's also the other fee scenario stuff he has to work on, but that's a little bit down the line. So he did draft the ADUs. I haven't been able to advertise for anything yet, because once I advertise, I have to have documents in hand, because the public has to be able to see them. So, if you are okay with his turnout tonight of what he has put together, then, we can at least put there's a portion of the ADU that's gonna go into our regular regs. If you vote on that tonight, I can just update the regs Monday and that's in. But then the cost portion of it will be with the betterments at a advertised public hearing. But it would be nice if we can just get things moving. So I have copies for everybody here, so you can see.
So we can update the regs without,
Usually
Public?
if it's not the assessment regs, if it doesn't have anything to do with money,
Not anything
we
to
just
do.
update language, and that seems to be by a vote in a regular meeting. We've done that all along. But when it comes to anything that's gonna change prices or costs, then we usually have to do the advertised public hearing and all of that. So if you take off the paperclip, the first page is the one that is, cost related. And so that is one that if you're okay with it, I'll advertise and we'll put forward for,
And-
a public hearing.
And just to explain, that first table is what is there now, but because you're adding the ADUs, I modified the in-law apartment so that it's covering just the apartment and not the single family with in-law, to make it consistent with how I thought the ADUs would need to be done.
Yeah, it just looks
So
clearer.
just showing them separate. And then I did make a footnote of EDUs are in addition to primary residence. So that way it's clear, and that way it's, you cover how many equivalent dwelling units it is, and then all the costs are based on those quantities. We put in the definition, of the accessory dwelling unit, and I think this is more of a state definition. The town might modify, this definition, so we could reference other regulations that the town has, or, through the building department. So we can either reference it, or we can include this definition as it is, but if the town modifies it, you could end up with it being inconsistent, so.
What do you think about that, Jake, with the town's stuff? Do you think, should there be language added into that first paragraph about being consistent with the town's regs as well, do you think, or?
I would think you would want it to match zoning.
Yeah. So would that just be another sentence, Jack, that you'd be adding? I
so
mean-
you
Well-
would, you would take this out and put in an ADU
Well,
is, please refer to building.
Yeah,
But
Tyngsborough
right now
building.
they have this.
They probably use them whenever.
Yeah,
it's
this is the
generic
state.
So
language.
why don't we just leave it like this? If they change, then we can change.
That's the only challenge, you
that's
have to
fine.
know that they change it, cause they might change it and you might not know. But I don't know if you add a sentence, like, or as amended by zoning or whatever, like, we could do that. Or just leave it, and like you said, try to catch it when it changes.
Can just ask Paul, let us know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's just,
Either way.
I don't, well, the only thing is, what I don't wanna do is, I don't wanna put in language that says we have to adopt what the town had, if we might not wanna do that, depending on what their language is, right?
Well, as it's referenced, what an ADU is, that I don't know. We do have to go by what. This is just a description, really.
Yeah, and
Based
And-
on the state regs that came out, right?
yeah, and we did get some legal feedback, right, that this is like the standard definition, but towns can also expand it if you want to, so it could be modified, but yeah, it's pretty standard, I guess, so, low risk.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I guess we can add it.
Could you add a sentence like, and is defined in local, state, and federal regulations or something like that?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Or just added the sentence like, and as defined in local,
Tyngsborough building code.
yeah, local, state, and federal.
That'd be in the zoning book, right? Is that where ours would be?
The zoning regulations.
The zoning.
Didn't have to, right?
Well, they have to go to town, I gotta see if it's gonna be a town meeting to update that.
But they didn't have to, right? These don't have to be in the zoning regs.
These are by
It's just
right.
Um,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Yeah, as long as they don't exceed 900 square feet, right? I think that's what it was.
I mean, do you think they're gonna be changing it?
Not, I don't know.
I don't know if it's on the town meeting warrant,
Okay.
I'd have to, I know, floodplain is, but.
Well, let's go with that. If it changes a lot, then
We'll
we can
update
do
it.
something to refer it to something that's live.
Okay, so then if that's the case, the ones that are multi-page, those ones are the ones you could approve tonight and I can just update Monday because there's no cost involved in those. And then Jack, were you gonna take the definition and add that, is that what you're saying here, you're taking that, adding that definition here as well? I just saw it, you said
No.
added ADU definition is done in sewer regs.
No, ignore that.
Okay,
No, that was just saying that this is the, like, the user fee piece, and then the rest is done in the sewer regs.
gotcha,
So it's just, yeah,
Oh, I
just
see what-
this one table,
yes,
just
gotcha.
table one.
So you're gonna advertise for this,
I have to advertise for
and we're gonna
this,
approve this.
correct.
So on the next page 16, is that concept that there's only one service going to the lot, and that service serves the primary residence, and then that the ADU is connected in, however that needs to happen. So we modified it by saying, you know, separate services for all buildings except where it's an ADU, or, you know, as I said before, where there's a rear building. And then later we say no separate and independent building sewer from an ADU to the street, will be allowed. And then ignore the yellow highlight for now, but then 5.5 is a basement ADU may tie into the existing sewer in the basement or connect to the exterior sewer, and that just depends on, you know, logistics of the property. And then we say, because it's if the primary living quarters is completely in the basement, we said as long as a separate backwater valve is provided and is accessible. So in some of the other regulations that other communities have, some of them went, as is stated in the yellow highlight, they wanted backwater valves like everywhere, and I don't know if those communities had some backup issues, but that's not common, and I think it creates more problems. So,
So you
I think the yellow highlight we don't keep.
take the whole section out?
But I just
Right.
wanted to discuss that.
You don't put a back water valve on a 6-inch gravity line. You're talking trouble.
It creates
clogs.
maintenance problems
Right.
and it can cause clogging, so yeah.
But
Paul
I
and
can
I
see
are on
you
the same
having
page.
a back valve in the basement, cause you're pumping it up.
So, right.
But it's a matter of preference.
Well, that'd be pretty common. The pump includes that, right?
Yeah.
The pump
Uh,
has.
well-
You want-
Well, so to have the check valve if you're pumping, but this is more of if you're a gravity flow out, it's basically a check valve such that, it's a little flapper valve,
Yeah, yeah.
so, yes.
So the sewer can't back
Yeah,
up
it
into your
can't.
house, but.
Yeah.
That causes issues.
Well, you're right, stuff catches.
Oh, yeah, you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the way this is written, you know, we say the backwater valve is required, I guess, and accessible. We could change that and say,
I mean, not everybody needs to put a, you know, a back water valve on there, it's,
yeah,
you know.
so we could say at the
Yeah,
discretion
It's
of.
inside the
Of
house
water.
and it's a plumbing code, it's not got anything to do with the sewer department.
Oh.
Yeah, so maybe we don't even reference the backwater valve, and that's just something that could be discussed.
Anything 10 feet off the building is mine, anything 10 feet in is all plumbing.
So I can end that sentence, you know, a basement ADU may tie into the existing sewer in the basement or connect to the interior sewer, period, exterior sewer. And then I'll delete the backwater valve. And then 5.6 is for a new ADU, the sewer commission requires the existing building sewer from the existing building to the public sewer to be inspected at the property owner's expense. And then the authorized sewer personnel will determine if repairs or replacement are necessary. So that's really a capacity thing and a condition, right? right? If you inspect it and it's in poor condition, because it's a new construction going into it, you want it repaired.
So in a separate ADU outside, of basically a separate building, they would Y into
Yeah, they put a
within
wire.
10 feet.
Yeah,
Right.
and they'd have a clean out on the
Yeah.
outside of the building.
Um. There. Oh, so it's not highlighted, but at the bottom of page 16, the sentence before the bottom highlighted sentence, authorized sewer personnel will determine if a manhole is required for exterior lateral connections and or if cleanouts are required / acceptable. So I'm trying to give Paul the discretion of when they make those connections, you know, depending on what's going on, maybe you want a manhole junction so
Yeah.
it's accessible, or cleanouts here, or an extra cleanout there, because there's so many different configurations that may
We've done
happen.
it before, we've got manholes in a common driveway where two houses connect to that in one manhole and before they go to the street.
Yep.
We've done that before.
All on their property, all owned by
Yeah,
them.
all on their property,
Yeah,
yeah.
right.
But I didn't wanna make anything we'll
Yeah.
determine if it's required, yeah.
Basically, each basis, yeah.
So when Jack's drafts came in today, I emailed them to Heather, cause she was the one that originally had said that we should have separate separate ADU regs. So her only comment, just to back to what we were just talking about, was she recommended discussing the definition of the ADU with the building commissioner to make sure the sewer regulations will address all types of ADUs that may be allowed under the zoning bylaw, and that the draft definition in the sewer regs mirrors the definition set forth in state law, which it does, right? Mirrors it, right? Which establishes a category of ADU. So do you think that's fine then, with the way it's written? To just leave that be and?
So she reviewed it based on this?
Yeah, we just got these in this afternoon, and so I sent them to her because she was the one who had
Okay.
asked her, and I wanted everything ready for tonight.
Yeah.
So that was her response. She was very quick. She got right back to us. That was her response. She had a question on, if they can be connected directly, and Jackie answered that for her, and then she had the question about the definition. So whatever you decide, I just want you to know that that was her opinion on that.
So in no case, anybody would get another line into our system, another stub.
Correct, you wouldn't do.
Unless it was a detached, right, didn't you say that?
No,
No,
you wouldn't even
the
do that.
detached pays a full connection fee. Well, actually,
But Y's into the existing.
but it wise it, yeah, they all connect into the existing. And I found another community, Concord actually, they had a detail for every scenario, like a sketch. And they showed the scenario where somebody might build an ADU and then subdivide the property. And it was only in that scenario where the ADU becomes a single family residence, where you then make them reconstruct their own service when they subdivide. But, I mean, I don't think there's any reason to show that level of detail. But, yeah, any ADU that is on the property ties in through the existing service.
There was a gentleman who came in today that's just beginning the process of looking into potentially building an ADU. He is on sewer, so I told him, we're discussing this tonight. He's welcome to come or watch it on TV, or it'll be posted this weekend, that, nothing had been decided yet as far as, the language in the regs, but, I just want you to know that there's one potentially up and coming who is already on sewer, so,
Is he on the Drake side?
yes,
Oh, so there's flow.
yes, yeah.
Question with wiring into the existing, is that staying within the private property? And they can't do it in the right of way?
It's gonna be on their property.
That's the intention.
Okay.
So wherever
I
the
don't-
stub, wherever the original house connects to, they'll
Yep.
just run the line over there and wire into that.
Okay.
Which
I
is
just,
the
I haven't
current
read
code.
through these, I just wasn't sure if it was.
And or
Yeah,
she said
sorry, we
put a-
just
put a
got 'em
manhole
late.
over. However, the design has to get done,
Right.
Yeah, if I need a manhole there, we can put your
depending on how
manhole.
far away it is. and all
Yeah.
that stuff. If it's
So,
a pump
but
up.
normally, they're just gonna wire it in, and they'll have a clean out.
Yep.
Cause if you start going to the street, now now you run into problems.
No, absolutely, but I guess if we keep everything on private property,
Yes,
then
it's,
we're not,
the private dwelling, it's gonna be on private property, connects to the stub that was provided for them,
Yep.
they can just connect right into that.
That, you agree with that, Jack?
Yeah, yeah. Trying to look at the regs to make sure that that's clear, because that was the intent. I don't know that we're explicitly saying it, but, I mean, it's clear, here we say no separate and independent building sewer from an ADU to the street will be allowed. But somebody might think that you could still connect the service in the right of way where we don't want it connected there. We want it all on private property and then it's a single.
Well, placed at a minimum of 10 feet from the foundation.
Although I feel like it's covered in the beginning where a separate and independent building sewer shall be provided for every building except where it's an ADU.
It's actually no different than tying in a mother-in-law's pot. It is,
Yeah, yeah.
So, that's if you have to run piping outside, right?
Yeah, if you have to go
If it's
outside.
attached, it'll go through and there'll be no issues. Right? Getting from the basement somewhere.
I think it's,
they just run right into the basement.
yeah. Yeah, I think we're good. The other thing that I was looking at on the cost side of things, you know, you have your existing and then new construction. I just wanted to just ask, is there a scenario where you have an I guess is the assumption an ADU is new? If you have a house and if the ADU goes in the basement, is that existing or is that new? Whereas if you have an existing house and you build a new ADU, is that new?
So I think-
wasn't sure if that's a
I think
problem
we
or
had
not.
talked about all that, back when we were
For
talking about the
cost.
fees, for cost. Yeah, is that what you mean for cost?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had talked about all that, cause at first it was like, well, if it's detached and it's new and then existing but then after a lot of discussion, it ended up just being, if it is attached to the house, it's gonna be the $49.50, and if it's a detached, it's gonna be a full connection fee of $9,900.
But I don't know if that's different than what I'm saying, because that's whether it's a 0.5 or a 1.
Right,
But I think the question is, does that 1 get a existing fee or a new construction fee?
new construction fee, because it's detached, so it's just being built. So it's the full connection fee, whether there's no longer going to be, existing anymore, cause that was what the guys decided too. We just haven't got to that meeting yet, we're waiting for you,
So-
to get, the new regs there's no longer gonna be an existing and a new fee, everything's gonna be the $9,900
Oh, okay.
they had decided
Okay,
on, remember?
sorry.
So that's why I crossed all that out, cause that's coming right out of there,
I forgot
based
that.
on our
Okay.
past discussions,
Yeah, no
Yeah.
issue.
so it won't be an issue, yeah. That's all I got.
I thought you watched the reruns of our
Totally forgot that.
apparently not.
Totally forgot
We're
that.
gonna quiz you next time.
All right, so
So we have the 3 residents that watch it.
so what do we need, a motion to?
Was I here? Oh, maybe I was.
You were not.
Approve the language for the ADUs and the sewer regs
Yeah.
as presented?
Yes,
So moved.
and then the other ones with the money, we'll do a full public hearing and all that.
I'm sorry, as I did strike out that last part of the 5.5.
Okay, so as, final draft, per final draft. And then do you wanna get me that maybe Monday or something, or
Yeah,
Tuesday,
I'll
next week?
I'll send it to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
All in favor?
Just one note on the,
Okay.
sorry, the word may versus shall. We just changed those to shall, or shall, I guess. Like 5.5 is may tie in. Should they be shall?
No, cause it depends on the scenario. And just, we're saying that if you build an ADU in the basement, right, you may tie into the interior sewer, or you may tie in to the exterior sewer, depending on which way makes more sense. But I'll shall tie into in the basement, or actually that can be shall,
It
because
cha- it
it's
change-
gonna do
doesn't-
one of those
It
too.
doesn't change the, meaning.
Yeah,
It
we'll do
just-
shall. Yep, sorry, I was thinking that was,
Alright, well, my word changed. I made
Yeah,
a
that's-
motion, could you, any more discussion?
So, on that final draft? No,
I'll
that's
do it,
it.
I'll say on the final draft, that Wood and Curran will send,
Okay.
based on tonight's discussion.
All right, all in favor?
Oh, aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
All right, ready, Kath?
Yes.
All right, senior foreman's report.
So 440 Plaza is going full steam on a lot of this stuff right now. We got that new restaurant that's going in by the Dollar Tree shop there, they're just putting in a new grease trap today.
Which,
Was it Caesar's?
It's called Choice.
Choice.
to the
Choice
left,
restaurant?
in the existing building?
Yeah.
Correct.
They haven't changed that yet, but.
National Grid's been changing out our gas meters at our pump stations, so that's a good thing. Get our
cause you
money's
won't get a
worth.
bill
Better-
anymore.
better.
Get our money's worth. We've been cleaning up at the stations and we're getting the summer stuff out, even though it's supposed to snow tonight. But basically, everything's running pretty good. We had a meeting with, on Village Lane about the dioxide pump. So we have to do some more research on that. Todd's gonna come out on Wednesday to discuss other options on what we could have for a dioxide pump. Because I don't think Chris wants it there anyway, so.
Todd and Chris, is who?
Chris is, the maintenance,
Heritage.
head. Chris Peterson, he's, runs the maintenance over at the village.
All right, and
He's been here before.
And who's Todd?
Todd is the dioxide, vendor.
He doesn't want it where? He doesn't want it at the station?
Yes, so, Jake was with me when we had that discussion, he came out on site, so.
What's his,
What is he, where is he,
aesthetics.
or was he recommending?
Oh, Todd wasn't out there, it was just with Chris, so Chris, his first recommendation is to not have it on the site. The other would be to do something subsurface.
I thought they were on board putting it there to begin with. I thought we had that conversation before we even got this far. No?
I don't think so.
I think you had mentioned it briefly, but
I
maybe,
mentioned it
maybe
briefly
he
too.
didn't
We
know.
haven't-
And then we had the
Yeah.
on-site
Yeah.
meeting to actually
Yeah.
You guys
talk
are
about
working on
possible
easements and-
location.
Yeah,
So what's the plan then?
Oh, we're back to the drawing board.
Can it be
subsurface?
We're gonna get that information when
Yeah,
Todd
we're
comes
gonna
out
see
Wednesday.
the options, if we can get a short tank and put something, you know, a chamber in and have it drip in, or if we have to do something inline on Curtis.
What is the, I haven't seen the pump station or the pump house, is it actually?
Is there a
like
reason why he doesn't
covered
want
up?
it?
It's pretty big.
Because everything there's basically, it's just the wet well, can't see anything, and then further away behind a row of shrubs, next to one of the buildings is all the electrical, so everything's pretty much hidden. If we came in with a 1,500-gallon tank and plopped it right there, it's gonna be kind of an eyesore.
But what if we put it in a building, you know, Reed's Ferry?
Yeah,
next to
I
the
don't think
shed?
they were,
No?
they wanna leave it kind of existing.
so depending on what Plan B ends up being, if we, because we've already had legal work on the settlement agreement and the easements, if we don't end up doing anything on their property, we should probably do an updated no easement, in other words, right? Because, so we're not tied to anything, 'cause there's never gonna be anything we're gonna be maintaining on there. And then the settlement agreement will finalize that to just say, as indicated before, we're just taking over what's publicly in the road that we should have taken over, you know, years ago under that settlement. But that there will be absolutely no maintenance by the town or ownership of anything on their private property. You know, we'll just wrap those two documents up, get them recorded, you know, we've already had them drafted, and we'll just make changes now if there's not gonna be anything on the property.
So the challenges of having it somewhere else is power, right? So I assume this thing needs power?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So putting it in line, something at Curtis Hill or something.
Yeah.
We think
we have
if
to
there's
tap
a
the
solar
force main.
option or something. Well, that's probably the easy part, having it, but how
Just
do you,
drip into the wet well, right?
but you still need power from somewhere.
Yeah. sure that, Todd from non-dioxide, he has some options, we just have to discuss them and find out what the best option is for us
Yeah.
at this point. I'm sure he's got something.
Okay.
Could we, I mean, if push comes to shove, could we do something eminent domain on, to put it there?
I don't know if you want to.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
just saying if there's no plan B.
It can, I gotta believe there's a plan B, and you get, I don't know, the generator comes on, it does, I don't know the workings of it, so I'm not sure what the options are, but.
I mean, you could, it would be years out, but you could grab power from Curtis, but you would have to put a electrical drop in. And then you're on National Grid schedule.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned earlier today about that you thought the closest pole was near Patricia.
Yes.
So at that point, if you were to do something there, is that too short of a distance from there to the Colvin station that it wouldn't protect much of the
I
pipe
don't know,
and it
that would
wouldn't?
be a question for the vendor.
Okay, I just don't know the length of where that is, you know?
Well,
Would it be
we-
worth
we-
your while to do
Where
it way
we
down
were
there?
standing on Curtis Road there at the dead end,
Yep.
that's like more than half the fourth main.
Oh, so you'd still have corrosion up,
At their end,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, it would be the private end.
okay.
And there's nothing up there, once you get onto, not, off their property, there's no power, no nothing.
No, the
Nope.
nearest pole is,
Yeah, the only thing going up Curtis is, telecommunications.
Is there a manual option?
I was wondering if there's one almost like an IV drip. Or if it can use,
On site.
or if it can like
Almost like-
hold, like a suction, when it pumps, it sucks, almost like a siphon. But I
Yes.
don't know if there's a,
that's why he's got, he's
Yeah.
going out Wednesday, we have to discuss this.
and then you just regulate how much gets
Yeah.
drawn in.
Alright, well, that's too bad. Make it a little tougher.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, I'm sure there's gotta be a plan B.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not seeing it, so,
All right,
that's
is
all.
that it?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, correspondence,
Nope,
complaints?
nope,
Executive session?
no.
Thank God.
I think, what do we do, Fred's not here?
Darryl, you're up.
With what?
Motion to
Item
adjourn.
10.
Oh, motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Thank you and good night.